The day after our son passed away, our neighbor left a teddy bear on the porch with a card that said, "He was ours first." I thought it was grief talking. But then she sent us a baby blanket. With his real birth name. The one we changed before finalizing the adoption. I called the agency in a panic. They said the birth mother was a closed case. But when we requested the file, the delivery address logged to her account was next door. And the woman we thought was just a nosy neighbor wasn't a stranger at all. I'm not the kind of person who shares things online, especially not personal things. But this story has been eating me alive. I have to get it out, because it still doesn't feel real. And if it didn't happen to us, I probably wouldn't believe it either. Our son, Lucas, died 6 months ago. He was 6 years old. It was sudden, some kind of bacterial infection. One of those things that starts off with a small fever, and by the time you realize how serious it is, it's too late. The doctors did what they could, but he was gone less than 24 hours after we brought him in. Losing a child like that, it's not something you come back from. Everything you thought mattered stops. Food, work, sleep, time, none of it means anything. People say time heals. That's a lie. Time just makes the silence louder. The day after we lost him, someone left a teddy bear on our porch. At first, I thought it was just another one of those sympathy gifts. People were dropping stuff off nonstop: flowers, casseroles, candles, kids' toys. But this bear was different. It was small and old-fashioned, almost antique. It wasn't in a gift bag or wrapped. Just sitting there, with a little card. I picked it up. The card was written in neat cursive. No name. Just 6 words. He was ours first. Remember that. At first, I thought it was grief messing with my head. I figured it was a mistake. Or maybe some weird way someone tried to say he belonged to everyone. Or something. I showed it to my wife, Jenna. She read it once and turned white. "This is Margaret's handwriting," she said. "Margaret is our neighbor. She lives 2 doors down. Mid-40s, quiet, keeps to herself. She brought cookies when we first moved in. That was 4 years ago. We thought she was harmless. A little nosy, always watching out the window, but nothing more than that. Then, 2 days later, we got a package in the mail. No return address. Inside was a folded baby blanket. Soft, handmade, worn from use. It looked like the kind someone would keep for years. It wasn't until Jenna unfolded it that I felt something shift in my stomach. On one corner, stitched in faded blue thread, was a name. Ezra. That name hit us like a punch in the gut. Ezra was Lucas's birth name. The name given to him before we adopted him. We changed it before the paperwork was finalized. Only a handful of people ever saw that name. The caseworker. The agency. The birth mother. That was it. It was a closed adoption. Private. Sealed. Nobody outside that circle was supposed to know. Especially not someone like Margaret. Jenna dropped the blanket and stepped back. She was crying already, saying, "How does she know that name? How does she know?" I didn't have an answer. But I called the agency immediately. I told them what happened. They were quiet. Too quiet. After I pushed and asked the right questions, they finally agreed to send us the access logs for the adoption file. It took a few days, but when the logs came, the truth hit us harder than anything else. 3 months ago, someone accessed the file. That file was supposed to be sealed tight. But someone with internal access pulled up our son's information. It showed the birth records, the old name, everything. The IP address they logged came from our neighborhood. And the shipping address they used to request the file copy? Margaret E. Holloway. Our neighbor. I stared at that report for what felt like hours. Jenna just kept whispering. She knew. She knew. She's not just some neighbor. And that's when the questions started pouring in. If Margaret wasn't just some nosy lady from down the street, then who the hell was she? Was she the birth mother? Was this some twisted obsession? Or was it worse? We didn't know. But I was going to find out. I didn't sleep that night. I couldn't. I kept watching the window, thinking maybe she was out there, just standing behind her curtains, watching us like she always did. Except now it didn't feel like neighborhood gossip. It felt like stalking. The next morning, I printed out the access logs and marched over to her house. I didn't tell Jenna. She was a wreck, curled up in Lucas's old bed, holding that damn blanket. Margaret opened the door like she'd been expecting me. "Morning," she said, like we were about to talk about the weather. I held up the paper. "I know what you did." She didn't even blink. "I don't know what you're talking about," she said. But her eyes flicked down to the paper. "You accessed the adoption file." That's a federal crime. Still nothing. Just a little twitch in the corner of her mouth. Like she was holding back a smile. I think you should go home, she said calmly. This isn't good for your wife. Or for you. That's when I snapped. Who the hell are you? Why are you doing this to us? And then, clear as day, she said, I told you. He was ours first. I didn't hit her, but it took everything in me not to. When I got back home, I called the agency again. Told them everything. They told me they'd escalate it, that someone would investigate. But they didn't sound hopeful. They were scared too, I could tell. A week went by. No word from the agency. No apology. No police. Nothing. But Margaret started getting bolder. We found more. Gifts. A copy of his hospital bracelet. A photo of a baby that looked eerily like Lucas as a newborn. A note that just said, You can lie to the world. But not to blood. We called the police. Filed reports. They said unless she physically threatened us or trespassed, there wasn't much they could do. That it was a civil matter. Civil. Like she hadn't shattered our lives. That night, I sat Jenna down and told her the only thing that made sense. She's the birth mother. I said. Jenna nodded. But the agency said her case was closed. Maybe she lied. Maybe she used someone else's name to adopt out the baby. Maybe she changed her mind. Or maybe she never let go. Jenna whispered. We were both right. I started digging. I pulled every scrap I could about Margaret Holloway. Social media. Property records. News articles. There wasn't much, until I found an old obituary for a child named Ezra Holloway, stillborn, born 7 years ago. Same hospital. Same birth date as Lucas. But Lucas wasn't stillborn. That was the twist that broke everything open. She'd reported the baby dead, but he wasn't. It didn't make sense at first. Why would someone report a live baby as stillborn? That's when I realized she didn't report him dead to everyone. Just the people in her life. The obituary was for show. To hide what she was really doing. Margaret must have been pregnant, but instead of raising the baby or going through open adoption, she faked his death to the people around her. Then she handed him off to the agency under a different name. Probably to avoid judgment. Or because she never really wanted to let go. She never said goodbye. She never closed the door. Lucas, Ezra, was supposed to be gone from her world. But when we moved in 4 years ago, with a blonde-haired little boy who would have been the same age, she must have recognized him. Some part of her knew. That's when it hit me, she didn't just find him by accident. She picked this neighborhood on purpose. Or maybe we were the ones who moved into her plan. I went to Jenna and told her what I'd found. She just stared at me. So what does this mean? She gave him up, and now what? She's claiming him again like a lost dog? I think it's more than that, I said. She never let him go. She didn't want adoption. She wanted a ghost. And when she saw him alive, it broke her. Jenna looked sick. She thinks we stole him. We decided we had to leave. It didn't matter what the agency or the police said. Nothing felt safe anymore. Jenna started packing. I called a realtor. We listed the house quietly, under a different agent. But Margaret must have sensed it. She got louder. One night, we found a box on our porch. No note this time. Inside was a small baby tooth, wrapped in tissue paper. Lucas had just lost one last fall. It was one of the ones we kept in a keepsake jar. Jenna ran upstairs. The jar was still there, but the lid was off, and the tooth was gone. Margaret had been inside our house. The police finally took it seriously. They came, did a sweep, even dusted for prints. They couldn't prove anything, but they believed us now. We filed a restraining order. It was granted, but barely. Margaret still watched. Still smirked when we left for work. Still stood on her lawn, watering her roses, like none of it mattered. One afternoon, I saw her out there, trimming the bushes. And I noticed something small, half buried in the dirt. I walked over when she went inside. Dug with my hands. It was Lucas's missing sock. The one we lost in the hospital. Buried in her flower bed. That sock broke something in me. I sat on the edge of the porch with it in my hand, just staring at it. I remembered folding it fresh out of the dryer. I remembered putting it on Lucas's little foot when he was too sleepy to do it himself. He used to laugh when I got the toes wrong. Now it smelled like soil and rose fertilizer. Jenna found me like that 20 minutes later. She didn't say anything. She just sat next to me. Then she whispered, "She's trying to make this a shrine." That's what it was. That's what it had always been. Margaret didn't just want to punish us. She was building a shrine out of our son's memory, twisting the life we gave him into something that fit her sick fantasy. We knew we had to leave, and fast. But before we could, something happened that changed everything. Late one night, we heard a car pull into our driveway. I checked the camera app on my phone. Someone in a hoodie walked up to our porch and left a box. Then they ran off. I waited until morning, then opened it. Inside were copies of every photo we had ever posted of Lucas. Every school picture. Every birthday party. Stuff we never made public, some from inside our home. Mixed in were torn-out pages from a journal. At the top of each one, in sharp black ink, "He was taken from me." Some pages were confessions. Others were threats. One had a list: your names, your routines, your passwords, Lucas's daily schedule. I went cold. I checked the router. Found a foreign device had been piggybacking on our Wi-Fi for months. Margaret had been watching us, reading us. Possibly even listening. I went to the police again with the new evidence. This time, they took our devices for forensics. They got a warrant. Went to Margaret's house. She was gone. Vanished. The house was still full of furniture, food on the counter, water running in the tub. But no sign of her. Then the final straw came. A letter. No stamp. Just tucked under our windshield. "You can run, but I will always be part of him. Part of you. You raised my son for me. Thank you. I'll see you again when you least expect it." We left town that night. Jenna was done. We moved across the country to a small town in Oregon. Didn't tell anyone where. Changed our numbers. Got new devices. We told ourselves it was over. But last week, a teddy bear showed up on our new porch. Same bear. Same card. When I saw that bear again, I dropped it like it was on fire. It was the same bear. Same little brown stitched eyes. Same limp left arm. Same musty smell. Even the card tucked under its arm looked like the one from before. He was ours first. We hadn't told anyone where we were. We hadn't used our real names to register anything, not the house, not the cars, not the school for our grief counseling. We were ghosts. But Margaret still found us. That night, Jenna didn't cry. She didn't panic. She got up, walked to the closet, and pulled down a shoebox. Inside was every letter, every photo, every threat Margaret had sent us. "We call someone," she said. "Not the police. A real investigator. Someone who finds people who don't want to be found." I didn't argue. We hired a private security firm. They cost more than we could afford, but we didn't care. They started digging into Margaret's background. What they found blew everything open. Margaret wasn't just a grieving birth mother. She had a long history of obsession. 2 restraining orders in other states. One from a foster family. Another from a daycare. She'd been institutionalized once in her 20s. Paranoid delusions, fixation on a lost baby. She was dangerous. But more than that, she was calculated. That's why she used fake names. That's how she got into the adoption system again. She never wanted to be a mother. She wanted control. We worked with the firm and set a trap. They helped us set up decoy profiles. Created a fake trail, a phony social media account for Jenna under an alias, with photos of our new life. A rental property listed under that name in a nearby city. A fake school registration. A new child. We waited. 3 weeks later, surveillance caught Margaret in that neighborhood. Sitting in a parked car near the fake school. Watching. The firm called it in. This time, law enforcement had what they needed. She had broken the restraining order. Crossed state lines to stalk a minor. Violated digital privacy laws. They arrested her outside a grocery store with her trunk full of our stolen mail, photos, and God help us, one of Lucas's old stuffed animals. I thought it would end there. But it didn't. 2 months after her arrest, we were called to testify. The court was packed. She sat there in a beige suit, looking like someone's tired aunt. Not the woman who'd broken into our home. Not the one who'd buried our child's sock in her garden like a keepsake. When I took the stand, I told the truth. I told them how we adopted Lucas legally. How we raised him with love. How we lost him, twice, once to illness, and again to madness. How this woman turned our grief into fear. And then I said something I hadn't planned to. I don't know if Margaret ever really saw Lucas as a person. I think she saw him as a second chance. A symbol. Something she could claim when she couldn't face what she gave up. But we were his parents. We were their every scraped knee, every night terror, every birthday. We were the ones who loved him for who he was, not for who he could have been. The judge sentenced her to 10 years for stalking, fraud, and unlawful surveillance. She didn't say a word when they cuffed her. Just stared at me with those dead eyes. We moved again. We buried the teddy bear. Burned the blanket. And I finally opened Lucas's memory box without shaking. Jenna and I sat on the floor and cried. Real tears. Not the scared kind. Not the angry kind. We still hurt. We always will. But we got our peace. And Margaret? She lost the only thing she ever had left, control. She tried to make us the villains in her story. But we survived her. We outlived her madness. And now, finally, she's the one stuck behind locked doors. Where she belongs.